Let's face it, forgiveness is costly. For the one doing the forgiving, it is often hard, if not impossible, to let go of old hurts and truly forgive. And for the one being forgiven, well, it's costly both in terms of the changed nature of the relationship with the one doing the forgiving, but it also requires the painful admission of having done wrong. But forgiveness is the only way ultimately to repair relationships that have been strained or broken. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Wednesday, January 24th, 2024. In today's epistle reading from the daily lectionary, the writer of the letter to the Hebrews talks about the cost of forgiveness. And he makes a statement that is so dramatic that it is absolutely head-spinning. At the same time, it's probably not a literal statement, but one of those truisms that people often quote. And once again, it has to do with blood, specifically blood sacrifice. He says, "When every commandment had been told to all the people by Moses in accordance with the law, he took the blood of calves and goats with water and scarlet wood and hyssop, and sprinkled both the scroll itself and all the people, saying, 'This is the blood of the covenant that God has ordained for you.' And in the same way, he sprinkled with the blood both the tent and all the vessels used in worship. Indeed, under the law, almost everything is purified with blood, and without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sins." Without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sins. Well, that's weird, isn't it? It's a bit of a head-scratcher. But according to commentator Tom Long, this was very likely one of those truisms that floated around and that people would frequently quote without really asking whether or not it was actually true. In the ancient world, it was certainly the case that the ritual of forgiveness usually involved animal sacrifice and the splattering of blood throughout the sanctuary. You get a pretty clear picture of what this looked like from this brief description, and he's actually referring to a passage from Exodus that details a pretty graphic picture. The writer of Exodus reports, "Moses sent young men to the people of Israel, who offered burnt offerings and sacrificed oxen as offerings of well-being to the Lord. Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins, and half of the blood he dashed against the altar. Then he took the book of the covenant and read it in the hearing of the people, and they said, 'All that the Lord has spoken we will do, and we will be obedient.' Moses took the blood and dashed it on the people and said, 'See the blood of the covenant that the Lord has made with you in accordance with all these words.'" Just stop and think about this. Picture it. Multiple young men out walking among the people of Israel, collecting the blood from sacrifices and bringing the blood probably in buckets to Moses. Then Moses takes half the blood and dashes it against the altar, and with the other half he dashes it upon the people who have assembled for this ceremony. Mercy, that's a lot of blood. I mention this detail because it underlines the ancient belief in the power of blood sacrifice for sealing the covenant between God and Israel and for making atonement with God for the forgiveness of sins. Which brings us back to the point the writer of Hebrews wants to make, and that is that Jesus, in his self-sacrifice on the cross, has offered his own blood on the eternal altar in the throne of heaven, so that sacrifices of cattle and sheep and goats are no longer necessary. His blood, shed once, suffices for all. Which actually, if you think about it, inverts the order of things. For when, in the ancient days, someone made a sacrifice of an animal, it cost the one bringing the animal, cost them dearly. Presumably, one's animals were valuable family assets. The death and blood of one's own animal signified the costly nature of forgiveness. But now, in Jesus Christ, it is not the one who sins who sacrifices, but the one who forgives. He sacrifices his own body and forgives. We are indeed forgiven through the shedding of blood, But it is not our blood, but rather the blood of Jesus Christ, which now becomes a powerful sign of the extent to which God is willing to go to reclaim us. Even if you don't believe blood is necessary for forgiveness, this symbolism remains very powerful. Tomorrow, the writer gives us a peek into the mind of God. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.